what are Harris policies that are so great?
She wanted to give a $50,000 rollover deduction to new startups for small businesses.
Trump did that.
Money allocated to
and
people
where does
that
the federal government get its money?
From the, I mean,
U.S.
from the U.S.
taxpayers.
Treasury.
So you are paying for illegal immigrants' housing. Thank you very much. How many guns were at this insurrection?
You don't need a gun for an insurrection.
0. There was no insurrection. Trump didn't want to overthrow the government. Thank you for admitting that. It's funny, he now admits that we do pay for illegal immigrants.
You said earlier that the rich people,
that.
25% of conservatives, probably Owen included, believe in satanic cults, okay, that like Hillary Clinton and Podesta belong to.
You don't have to call it a satanic cult, but you can go look. Marina Abramovich, Spirit Cookings, Democrat Party emails. You can make up your own mind after you read it.
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we are going to watch a very heated debate between Owen Shroyer and Destiny. Now, this one starts off with a completely classless act by Destiny. Check this out. So that really was emblematic of things to come. So let's move into the first part now, where Destiny tries to make the case that many people, conservatives especially, don't actually believe that legal immigration into the country is a big issue in this election cycle. I mean, he's a very, very good debater when it comes to using rhetoric, but rhetoric can be a very evil tool sometimes. And we are about to see many examples of this, which we will break down. So with that, let's get into it.
I think the question was, in 2016, I think conservatives, Democrats said that it was a waste of money, it wasn't a good idea, and then now that Kamala's proposing a wall, why is it now a good idea? Was the gist of the, yeah. The idea that immigration policy could be boiled down to having a wall or not is childish. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into making good immigration policy. But the reality is most people, especially conservatives, don't think that illegal immigration is a big problem in the United States right now. It's very, very, very easy to prove this, because if you look at what happened on the border, you saw that there was a bill in Congress to address those issues at the border. Everybody was on board with voting for this until Donald Trump came in and said, no, I need you to keep the border open because I need to run on this as an election issue. You can listen to McConnell talk about it. You can listen to Cruz talk about this. All of this is open testimony. It's not even testimony. You're able to say it to the media. Donald Trump said, I can't have you pass this border bill because it's going to make it so that I don't have something to run on. That doesn't sound like a very big problem to me. That sounds like politicking. Much the same, when Donald Trump was in office, Donald Trump didn't do any of the things that he said he would do at the border. He didn't get any legislation passed. He didn't make any substantive changes legislatively or through the legislature by working with them to actually effect any good border policy. He didn't get any money from Mexico. That was a complete and total lie. He failed on basically every single measurable outcome. He wasn't able to do anything. So again, if you think that the border is a problem, why would Trump be your guy to fix it? He did nothing except for what he could with executive action, and he's not able to lead the Congress in getting any comprehensive immigration stuff done. And the one time there was a good bill on the table that would have alleviated a lot of the issues with the asylum-seeking process, he shot it down. This guy over here is probably very keen to misinfo a lot of the stuff about the border bill, so I'll get ahead of a few of it because I know a lot of the dumb talking points, like the $200 billion in aid, the majority of which is used weapons, which last I checked can't help anybody with their health care in the United States. But for instance, when people talk about the border bill, they'll say stupid things like, well, that bill would have let 5,000 people a day in. No, what that bill would have done is if the caps hit a certain level or exceeded a certain level, the federal government would have been able to unilaterally shut the border down, which would have actually prevented more people from coming in if numbers got too high until the numbers had come back down. This bill would have allowed for more asylum judges to be paid for so that we could work through the backlog of people better. This bill would have allowed for more border security and for more people to prevent people from coming over illegally across the border. This bill would have helped a lot of the problems at the border, but Republicans were more keen to see a fight over politics rather than alleviating the problem. So I guess it was never really that big of a problem to begin with.
Thank you. And Owen, you have 3 minutes to respond.
Well, that's just a blatant misrepresentation of the congressional bill. It was never going to permanently shut down the border. It was going to set a cap per day, which would have maxed out still over 1 million border crossings per year. And they love to play this game with asylum. They're basically just rewriting the laws, and so anybody can seek asylum. Anybody can get on the app, the CBP One app, and claim to be an asylum seeker. This is not asylum. Asylum seekers go to their bordering country. That's an asylum seeker. These are people who are coming to the United States of America for free food, free health care, a hotel to stay at, and a free transportation trip wherever they want to go. That's why they're coming here, and they've basically rewritten the laws where everybody is rubber stamped as an asylum seeker. So you can sit here and say, oh, asylum seekers, asylum seekers. Well, anybody and everybody from all across the planet can come here and now claim to be an asylum seeker, and you're just rewriting the phrase and the concept of illegal immigration. But you're just wrong. It's still over $1 million a year on this bill, but still you're completely misrepresenting it. The reason why the Republicans decided not to vote for this bill is because it did include all the pork barrel spending. This is how corrupt Congress is, and both sides do it. The Republicans and the Democrats do it. They've been doing it for years. They just tried to do it again on the continued resolution, but they couldn't even get the SAVE Act passed. So they'll have a bill with a major issue. Let's say it's border security. And then they'll pork barrel funding of all these different projects, all these different things that a governor over here might want, a representative over here might want, a senator over here might want. And they toss it all into this bill and they say, this is the border security bill. And then if you don't sign it, you're not for border security. And it's just a game. It's a game that our politicians have been playing against us, all of us, for years. So, yeah, I'm glad that the Republicans didn't do it in a rare moment, but yeah, are they still going to get the pork barrel they want? Yes. Are we still going to get all the illegal immigration that they want? Yes. So we still lose on that issue. Now, again, to sit here and pretend like the border was less secure or not secure under Donald Trump is just not being honest. The numbers are proven that the border crossings were down under Donald Trump. And every year since the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration has been in power, you've had a record number of illegal crossings. 3 straight years. And by the way, where are the 325,000 missing children that they have let in? Why did Kamala Harris cancel the border wall construction that was already paid for but now pretends to do it? It's because she's a flip-flopper and she'll say whatever she needs to get fools like this to vote for her.
Okay, so not much more needs to be said by me about this one here. I mean, Owen Shroyer just cooked that man alive on the stage. And this is an example of somebody who's a good faith debater, somebody who takes the issue at hand, comes prepared, with plenty of facts, and can actually address the subject matter of the debate and follow the logical path rather than just trying to derail and spurg the whole time. Owen lays out exactly why Republicans don't support this bill and why, actually, the bill doesn't help with border security because there can be still over 1 million people a year coming in the country according to this bill. And also how there are all sorts of other things smuggled within the bill as well. But Destiny's point is that Republicans don't want to vote for the bill that is named the border security bill. Therefore, Republicans just don't want border security. Okay, buddy, sure. Don't address the 1 million people coming over the border per year. Don't even address it. 1 million people. No big deal. On to the next part now, guys. But before we get there, don't forget to smash that like button for me. Helps me enormously. And also, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Let's get into it.
First of all, what cities are so expensive to live in? Democrat-run cities. And again, he talks about redistribution.
Is this the open?
You talk about redistribution again.
When those cities are expensive, do you acknowledge that those cities produce more economic output for the country than all the red cities? This is what I mean when I say these people don't live in reality. But like, why can't you acknowledge that? Because you'll very quickly say things like, oh, well, there are more homicides in Chicago. Yeah, there's more people that live in Chicago, and Chicago is what makes Illinois all its money. That's where the money comes from, or the blue cities. It's not just blue states that subsidize the existence of red states, which is true. And by the way, all of those governors were so happy for the American Rescue Plan when Biden was there to hand out money to shore up their budgets. But then when you want to talk about expenses and living and all these other things, now you want to talk about how blue cities need to be held responsible, but you don't give them credit for the economic output? It's insane.
It's a nice deflection. So Democrat cities are the most expensive to live in, so I'm glad you at least acknowledge that. And again,
more expensive to live in the U.S. than Uganda as well, right? It is, right?
So you can always volunteer to pay more, all right? If you want to redistribute wealth, you can be the hero, man. You can empty your bank account right now, but I bet you don't. I bet you're actually living pretty rich. I bet you do pretty well. And you want to bring up the Constitution. The Constitution actually states when the United States government becomes corrupt, it's our duty to reform the government. That's actually
what article
in the
clause is
Constitution.
that? Is to terminate to
Second of
suspend
all,
the rules
you
of
can read it
Constitution?
again.
Which Constitution are we talking about?
We live in a constitutional republic. We don't live in a democracy.
What is the contradiction there? What do you think? Hold on. What is a republic and what is a democracy?
A democracy is where a bunch of lunatics like you can vote away my rights. A democracy is where 3 wolves and a sheep vote what's for dinner.
Is that Article 5 or Article 6? I don't know. I don't know what part of the
So you
Constitution.
asked what a democracy
So a
was.
democracy is when
We
multiple
have-
people vote. A republic is when you have representatives that do things for you. We are a representative democracy. That's why we're a constitutional republic. We are both a republic, which just means you're not a monarchy, and a democracy. This idea that we must be a republic because I'm a Republican and we're not a democracy because you're a Democrat is fucking retarded. Come on.
So again, we live in a constitutional republic where we have unalienable rights given to us by God, the Creator. Democrats don't want you to know that because they want to be able to vote away your rights, like they want to be able to vote away your Second Amendment rights, vote away your First Amendment rights, and they'll go right down the line, okay? So that's why these people love democracy, because
When we
they
say
want
vote
to be
away
able
your
to
rights, are we
vote
talking
away your
about
rights.
abortion that we lost to a conservative Supreme
what
Court?
bill- what
Are we talking
bill
about the
of
Second
rights?
Amendment when Donald Trump did the bump stock ban? I'm sorry, how
a
were your
bad
gun
ban.
rights attacked under Biden?
It was a bad ban. I
And they
agree.
came under Donald Trump, so why would he be the guy, a guy, no offense, but a liberal from New York, which is what Donald Trump is, that's the guy that you want defending your gun rights?
So you now have the President of the United States and the Vice President and the next would-be Vice President, Tim Walz, have all said they want an assault weapons ban, okay? What even is an assault weapon? Can you tell me?
A scary big black rifle that Democrats have been crying about for 30 years. They haven't banned it yet. I don't think they're going to ban it in this administration.
Very intellectual. By the way, what is a rich person's fair share?
What is a rich person's fair share? I think that the level of taxation should match appropriately the spending that we want from our federal government. Also, the reason what you asked
So
me an
what
assault
is a
rifle, there
fair
is no
share?
definition
So
for an
what
assault rifle.
is
I
a
acknowledge
fair
that.
share?
I don't want to ban assault rifles. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris both own firearms. Walz is a hunter. When was the last time you saw Trump with a firearm? I watched Roseanne, it was Roseanne, I think, with a firearm, right? Where she almost killed herself on a Twitter video with one? Jesus Christ.
So what, in the Bill of Rights, where is abortion mentioned?
Do you want to get into the constitutional legal construction of the penumbra of rights that are invoked when you try to get like the right to privacy
You
out
brought
of
up,
the 14th
you
of the
said,
night?
you claim there's a right to an abortion, it just
I didn't
doesn't
claim
exist.
there was a right to an abortion. Technically, the abortion right comes from a right to privacy, but we'd have to go over Casey and Roe, and I'm sure that you're not familiar with any of those Supreme Court cases, or probably any Supreme Court case. But the reality is that before you had a protected right to seek an abortion, now you don't. Republicans took that from you. Before you had the right to own a bump stock, Donald Trump banned bump stocks through executive action, by the way.
Which lost at the Supreme Court.
Which what?
Lost at the Supreme Court.
Well, that hasn't stopped him in the past from going back over and over again to try to get cases tossed or to try to get
Hey
favorable
man, I don't
rulings,
live in
so-
a cult. I said I have disagreements with Donald Trump. So you can attack me on Trump's policies that I disagree with. That's not a win for you.
I agree I can't win attacking you on Trump's policies because he has none. I mean, what am I mean, yeah, what can you give me what is one Trump policy that he's running on besides 20% tariffs?
Secure border.
That's not a policy.
Cut
That's like
taxes.
an idea. That's the concept of an idea of a policy.
Stopping war.
Okay.
What are Harris policies that are so great?
Well, the three that she listed immediately is she wanted to give a $50,000 rollover deduction to new startups for small businesses. So that
That
when
was
they start
Trump's
to earn-
idea?
What?
Trump did that. When he was
Maybe
president.
he should have spoke it. I don't know if he's too senile
No, you
now or
probably
he's
just
lost the
weren't
ability to
watching.
do it. What?
You just weren't watching.
I was watching. Unfortunately, I watched too much Trump. That was one. A second thing she wanted to do was expand the child tax credit, which was incredibly successful under Biden.
Also a Trump policy.
It wasn't. That's why it happened under Biden, and it's why the Republicans initially fought against it. Are we going to say that pre-existing conditions in the ACA was a Trump policy now as well? I know that he wants to take care of that one. And then the third thing that Kamala Harris said is she wanted to do a $15,000 first-time home buyer credit to people that were buying homes for the first time. Donald Trump said he wanted
For
to
illegal immigrants.
How does I'm so curious. How do you think these tax credits work?
You do realize that they give money to illegal immigrants to buy houses?
I don't think you know how any of this works because I think you were probably born a rich kid and you never bought a house on an FHA loan before. So I had a tax credit when I bought a house. The way that these work is you apply for these refundable tax credits when you get them at the end of the year when you've qualified for them. An illegal immigrant definitionally doesn't file taxes because they don't have social security numbers. They don't get money back from the government. So how would an illegal immigrant qualify for a tax credit? Again, this doesn't make any sense. It's like the hurricane
I agree.
machines.
It doesn't make any sense. This is the Democrat policy. I completely agree. It doesn't make any sense at all. So
Where are
thank
these
you.
lazy people that are coming over and not working and not getting jobs, getting the money for homes?
The U.S. government.
They pay them for the homes too? Then why even give them the tax credit? Why not just give them the homes outright? What
Don't
the
give them
fuck
any
are we talking
ideas.
about?
They might do that next. They might actually do that next.
Where are they
Actually,
getting all
they
these-
do.
Yeah.
Actually, they do. Who pays for the hotels that they're staying at in New York City, in Chicago? Well, who's paying for those hotels? Who's paying for that room and board?
I imagine there's probably federal money allocated to
And
people
where does
that
the
are part of
federal government get its money?
From the, I mean, technically from the U.S. Treasury, sure, yeah.
U.S. taxpayer. So you are paying for illegal immigrants' housing. Thank you very much.
So a great job there by Destiny laying out all of Trump's fine policies and also laying out where exactly it is that the money comes from to support all of these illegal immigrants and to house them and to give them all of these resources straight from the taxpayer's pocket. A little bit of deductive reasoning.
This is bags and bags of food being thrown away because the migrants don't want to eat them and they just go to waste. This is all food that is going to waste. This is insane. This is fresh, this is good food, but they don't want to eat it. They said they don't like it.
But that's just what happens, and it happens a few times throughout this debate when Owen is actually able to ask a few questions and just momentarily sift his way through the spurg. But watch closely, because every time Owen pretty much makes a good point, from here on out, Destiny comes in and derails the conversation with what has aptly been described as meth prattle. This is when somebody speaks at 1,000,000 miles an hour, likely due to being addled by some sort of a substance such as methamphetamine or Adderall, in order to try and make somebody sound really smart, like they really know what they're talking about and like they've got a lot of conviction, a lot of confidence in what they're saying. And really, all they're trying to do is just derail the conversation, not answer any objections coming their way.
Because they don't have social security numbers. They don't get money back from the government. So how would an illegal immigrant qualify?
So keep an eye out for that. Let's get into it.
Yeah, do we acknowledge that Trump probably lost 2020? Have we gotten over that yet, or?
No, I don't want to relitigate that, but I would be happy to show you the results on the graphs where at 3:30 in the morning in 4 states, Biden's votes go straight up. Is that normal?
No, it's not normal.
So what do you think that is?
I think that just like every single person before the election said, there was an unprecedented amount of mail-in voting.
And they were all for Biden.
A lot of them were. Did you
Of
not
course.
listen?
Of course they were.
Of course they were.
And they all came right at 3:30 in the
Because
morning.
Donald Trump spent a year in the lead up telling his people, don't vote via mail-in ballot.
You are so
Do you remember
gullible,
that
man.
happening? Did you watch Donald Trump for a year
You are
say,
so
we don't
gullible.
vote via mail-in ballot, we go to the polls and vote? And you know why he did that? We know why he did that. Because Roger Stone and Manafort, two corrupt lunatics that Donald Trump has both given full pardons to, by the way, are on recorded audio saying Donald Trump is just going to declare himself the victor on the night of the election because he knows he's going to get destroyed when the mail-in ballots start coming.
And did Donald Trump declare himself the victor, or did he leave the White House?
Do what?
Did Donald Trump leave the White House?
After a failed insurrection, yes.
A failed insurrection. Who ran the insurrection?
Donald Trump and the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and everybody that broke into the Capitol and delayed the certification of the vote.
Do you really believe that?
Was the vote certification delayed?
What is an insurrection?
Wait. Was the vote?
Hold on.
No,
What is an
wait.
insurrection?
Was the vote certification delayed on January 6th?
No, it went through. They certified. Did Trump? Trump?
Hold on. I'm so sorry. I don't know who you're answering right now. Was the vote certification delayed? Was Congress called out of session on January 6th?
Yes, I think for a couple hours.
For several hours.
So by the end of the day,
why were they called out of session?
So by the end of the day,
you see how we can't live in reality? You see how this doesn't work? The country doesn't function when you have people
if you
that
want to go
refuse
back
to
and call
accept.
this an insurrection,
The craziest thing is it's all on video. We've seen all of this.
So
None of this is a mystery.
Tell me
right?
what an insurrection is. Just define it for me.
I don't have to define it for you. I'm just asking simple questions. On January 6th, there was a certification of the vote. That vote was disrupted by violence. If you want to get into what an insurrection is, you could say that it was a crowd of people that had gathered with a common purpose to use the means of violence or intimidation to disrupt an official federal proceeding, such as the certification of the 2020 vote, the outcome of that election, which is why it would probably qualify as an insurrection.
Okay. How many guns were at this insurrection?
You don't need a gun for an insurrection.
Zero.
Zero? Wait, the cops didn't have any guns?
Oh, the cops had a gun. That's right. They killed an innocent person.
So what you just said was just wrong.
That's right. They killed an innocent person.
With a slingshot? What do you mean there were zero guns at the insurrection?
So okay, so the government had the guns. So that's good. So that's what happens when only the government has the guns.
Just to be clear here, none of the people on the grounds of the Capitol had any firearms on them? Not a
single one.
Really? Not even though the Secret Service said 80% of the people that were at the Ellipse just an hour earlier listening to Trump's speech didn't go through the magnometers because they saw people in the crowd that had firearms they didn't want to go through that all marched to the Capitol building. What, did they drop their gun off at a hotel? Did they give it to a friendly police officer? Did they find a fellow DC BLM guy to hold onto their rifles?
Not a single gun was ever recovered or on record at the January 6th insurrection.
Oh, recovered.
And
well,
what type of an insurrection?
How many pipe bombs were found
what type
at
That's a
January
great
6th
question,
event?
actually. Who laid those pipe bombs?
We don't know. We never found out.
We don't know. How convenient. The government can recognize somebody's earlobe in a video and track them down and go arrest them in the middle of a hurricane, by the way. The FBI went into North Carolina in the middle of a hurricane and arrested somebody, but they can't find who laid the pipe bombs. They have no idea. And Kamala Harris doesn't remember where she was that day either, even though one of the bombs was allegedly allegedly right outside of her office. She has no idea. She's changing her story. But what
It's
type of an insurrection?
No one is changing the story. You guys filmed this
Kamala
from start
has
to
changed
finish.
the story.
We can
Kamala
watch
has
you
changed the
guys
story.
cheering for it. We can watch you cheering 1776. What was
I know
1776?
you hate 1776.
Wait, I'm
I know
curious.
you hate
What
that.
was 1776? What was that?
That was the founding of the country.
What was it? What was the event? What would you call that?
When we overthrew royalty and created
against the government, would you call
a
it
constitutional republic.
Would you call that an insurrection?
No.
No. 1776, the revolutionary. You wouldn't call that an insurrection?
So are you pro-insurrection now? You just babble and stammer so much, I can't figure out where you're at. Tell me what kind of an insurrection, when an emergency notice goes out to go home, everybody goes home and calls it a day. Is that
what kind of an insurrection ends when the leader tells his followers to go home? All of them.
Perfect.
That's kind of how it works. That's how a cult works.
So there was no insurrection. Trump didn't want to overthrow the government. Thank you for admitting that. That wasn't too hard to get out of you.
So Destiny is just the most dishonest of actors. And essentially he's just a useful idiot, because what he does is he just toes the very safe line of shilling for mainstream media and big government talking points. He may talk fast and move his hands and his body in a way that makes him look like he is very much addled on some sort of upper, but doesn't actually make any good points. I mean, maybe he sounded confident there, and maybe there would be some impressionable kids who would watch that and think that he's a really smart guy. But essentially his point was, while it was an insurrection because there were guns there and there weren't any guns found, as Owen said, but Destiny says that the CIA, the Secret Service, saw the guns in the crowd. So because the Secret Service said it, guys, it must be true. All of those grandmas must have been low-key strapped. And like Owen said, the government can recognize somebody's earlobe on video and they can go and arrest them 2 years in advance. But they can't find any guns. They can't see any guns on the footage. Curious. And moreover, to the point of the election, I was watching this live, as I'm sure many of you were, and we were sitting around eating some Doritos, happy. We thought that Trump had it in the bag at one stage, and then it all stopped. And the mail-in ballots came, and then it just went like that. In favor of Joe Biden, who was neck minute, the most popular president in the history of the United States. He got the most votes out of anybody ever. Checks out.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if.
And last point on Jan 6 and the insurrection. If you guys want to watch Destiny get absolutely ripped to shreds about this topic, watch the debate that he and Andrew Wilson did on the Fresh and Fit podcast, because the way it ends was absolutely fantastic. Now on to the next bit, where the meth prattle and the derailment only gathers momentum, with more absurd claims coming up.
Every election in the 21st century, the Democrats have denied they lost.
Which vote
They denied
certification?
that Al Gore lost, they denied that John Kerry lost, and they denied that Hillary Clinton lost. And yes, they went to Congress and tried to stop the certification of the vote.
Really? What did they do for Gore?
That has happened every
What did they do
time.
for Gore?
And they'll likely
Wait,
do the
when did they
exact
stop?
same thing.
There's nothing.
When Trump wins in 2024, they'll likely do the exact same thing, just like Raskin has already said. The Democrats are already plotting not to certify the 2024 election because they know Trump is going to win.
It's fantastic delusion.
It's mainstream news. Anybody can pull it up on their phones right now. Jamie Raskin won't certify election results. Go ahead, plug it in. You got it right there, don't you? Yeah, it's right there.
We only have several minutes of the opening.
Do you think Gogeta or Vegito would win in a fight? It's frustrating. I guess the saddest thing is that as much as I can't stand conservatives because I'm a liberal/progressive, at the very least, I felt like we were all kind of in the same boat. We were all kind of like the same country, and we were all presenting at least a unified front to the rest of the world. And as much as conservatives and Democrats might have hated each other, at least we were all Americans at the end of the day.
And when
right?
did that change?
When did that change? Well, a big change.
When Donald Trump became president of the United States. And they lost their mind because they couldn't control him, they couldn't bully him, they couldn't get him to bow down to political correctness, and so this is them, stuttering and spamming all over the place like lunatics, trying to get Donald Trump killed, assaulting Trump supporters, and lost their minds. Why do you think Elon Musk left the Democrat Party? Why do you think Tulsi Gabbard left the Democrat Party? Why are so many Democrats like Vernon Jones leaving the Democrat Party? Because this This is your Democrat voter right here. Nobody wants to be a part of this psychotic movement anymore. Nobody.
Psychotic movement when you guys
Yes,
literally
psychotic.
tried. You guys
want to
invaded the
trans
Capitol.
Your side believes in trans kids.
Who wants to
Your
trans
side
kids?
wants to pay for trans
Most
surgeries
people
in
aren't
the
okay
prisons.
with it. You guys
Your
won't even
side
acknowledge
lets in
what
10
you've
million
done.
illegal immigrants.
Oh
Your
my
side starts
God.
wars all over the world. Our side is the party of sanity and the party of common sense. And if you can't see that in this debate, then you're never going to see it.
You're never gonna. The party of sanity is the party that doesn't believe in dinosaurs and thinks that we create hurricanes.
What are you talking about?
Do you believe in dinosaurs? You think
What
they're
is this
real?
dinosaurs?
Wait,
What are you talking about
do you think
dinosaurs?
the dinosaurs
Do you
ever
play
roam
with
the earth?
dinosaur
Do you
toys?
think the
Why do you
dinosaurs
bring this up?
Do you think the dinosaurs
Is that
ever
a
roam the
dinosaur
earth?
on your necklace right there? What
do you
is
ever
that?
think? Do you think the dinosaurs roam the earth?
I'm not here to talk about dinosaurs.
It's insanity. It's crazy to me.
So notice here that Destiny keeps on bringing up dinosaurs and how Republicans don't believe in dinosaurs. And this is a very, very sneaky rhetorical trick and a logical fallacy called a Mot and Bailey. This is where you conflate 2 points that could share some sort of similarity, but one of the points being the Mot is a more modest point, and one of the point being the Bailey is an insane point. And the idea with this rhetorical trick is that you want to drag your opponent into defending the Bailey. You don't want them up on the Mot where they can easily defend their logical idea. You want to drag them down and have them defend something that they probably never said and something that is essentially indefensible and makes them look stupid. Now, the Mot in this sense is Owen's point, which is that the MAGA movement is a movement of common sense, doesn't believe in transing kids, doesn't believe in having an open border, and doesn't want to go and start wars all over the world. The Bailey here is that people in the MAGA movement don't believe that dinosaurs existed. And this can actually be very, very effective as a bad faith technique if you don't want to contend with the points that Owen just brought up. And hey, if I were a Democrat, I wouldn't want to contend with them either. And actually, Owen did get dragged momentarily into the Bailey there, and he was forced to defend this point, which is completely irrelevant and stupid, about dinosaurs. To which end, Destiny throws his little arms up in the air as if he's achieved some big victory and if he's made some great point. But moral of the story there, never get dragged into the Bailey. Always stay in the Mot, always stick with your sensible arguments, and do not even acknowledge their diversion. So on to the next point now, where I think Owen does a great job of summarizing what is happening with the Trump-led America First MAGA populist movement and how this has essentially changed the landscape of the Republican Party.
I'm sorry, did you say if Trump wins or if Trump loses?
If he wins.
If he wins. Well, I think what happens is probably the same whether he wins or loses. I think what Trump has done is he's basically remade the Republican Party, and so you kind of have the old neocon establishment type that you no longer see at Republican events anymore. George Bush is not a popular Republican. Dick Cheney is not a popular Republican. John McCain is not a popular Republican. Even Nikki Haley and Lindsey Graham get booed when they go to Trump rallies. So that's kind of the establishment right, if you will. The Republican voter base and really the populism that is behind the Republican Party has now, behind Donald Trump specifically, I think has now taken it over. So I don't think that's going to change. I think future candidates are going to sound more like Donald Trump. They're going to sound more like Vivek Ramaswamy. I think the message is going to be smaller government, true conservatism. I think the message is going to be stop funding foreign wars, foreign aid. I think the message is going to be bring back manufacturing, mostly common sense stuff. But I think that the thrust behind this populist movement is that we understand there's government corruption, we understand that there's mainstream media corruption, and we want a representative as our president, as our representatives in Congress who know that, who talk like us, who think like us, and aren't going to be afraid to say it out loud. So I think it's kind of a permanent reformation of the Republican Party post Donald Trump, whether he wins or loses this election.
So just quickly on that point, I mean, I think it's a really interesting and actually heartening point that he makes there. And that is that the Republican Party is definitely not what it was 20 years ago. And we see figures like Vivek Ramaswamy and Donald Trump emerging, and these people actually embody a true conservatism in a sense. Not in all senses, that's for sure. They could definitely be perceived as very libertarian in many senses. But in terms of being anti-big government, and also in terms of not spending trillions of dollars on foreign wars and wanting to spend that sort of money on your own people, it's promising. On to the next bit now, where they continue about wars.
Hello, my question is geared mostly towards Shroyer. You mentioned no foreign wars under Trump. In 2017, on Inauguration Day, I deployed and we dropped a record number of bombs in a single deployment on Syria until our record was beat by the Truman the year after that. What do you mean no foreign wars under Trump?
So are you referring to the airstrike on the airport strip? Which one are you referring to?
The fight against ISIS during Operation Inherent Resolve.
Okay, so I would say that was a war that he inherited. I would say he didn't start that war. I think it was an inherited war. Now, you can argue whether you think we did good in that or bad in that. We could sit here and argue about the Biden pullout of Afghanistan. I think these were wars that Trump inherited. The decisions he made to try to end them, just like the decisions that Biden made to try to end them, you can debate. But he didn't start any new wars. So I think that's the distinction here. These were wars that were already ongoing for years and years. Past administrations, Obama, Bush, Republican, Democrat, didn't matter. So I wouldn't say that that was a started war. These were wars that he inherited. But I think that the general perspective to understand is that you didn't have the massive conflict in Ukraine, you didn't have the massive conflict in the Middle East, which we hope doesn't engulf us now, but they are now sending troops to both of those regions, and so I'd like to see that. I don't think there's enough being done by Trump either to stop these wars, to be honest. I'd like to see all these foreign wars stopped. I want to decouple from Israel. I want to decouple from the Middle East. I want to decouple from all of these foreign wars. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't even care if it makes us isolationists. We don't need the rest of the world. We can build everything we need here. We have enough energy here. I would decouple from all these foreign countries, internalize everything, and get out of all these wars to begin with.
The fact that there were no wars going on is ridiculous. Crimea was still invaded and held by Russia. The civil war in the Donbass that was being supported by Russia was still going on. And in the Middle East, you had the occupation of Crimea was 2014.
Obama.
Okay, was Trump not president when it was occupied? Exactly. And then the civil war in the Donbass, where Russia continued to escalate by sending in more troops and more forces. Did that happen under Trump?
So this is hilarious.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
say Trump-Russia collusion.
And then also for the Middle
Can I
East.
answer? Are you going to
No, you
stutter
didn't
and
answer. You're
babble?
not going to.
He's
You're not going to
babble
answer
again.
because
He's
you
going to
don't have
start
an answer to the
babbling like a
question.
baby.
That's why you're doing a ramble right now.
They say Trump-Russia collusion.
Russia collusion. Holy shit. We got our joggers on today.
He just admitted
when
it.
it came to the Middle East,
He just admitted it.
there was
When
also
did-
still conflict in the Middle East. You had Iran attacking Saudi Arabia for the first time ever. You had the entire border riots, Great March of Return, lasted for about a year in Israel. And you still had all the conflict in Syria. So the idea that there was no conflict in the Middle East is also delusional.
Okay, so again, the question was new wars. Russia invaded Ukraine when Obama was president. Russia invaded Ukraine again when Biden was president, not when Trump was president.
Destiny, you claimed that there was no money being given to foreign illegals for housing. They weren't buying houses. You're correct on that. But Christopher Rufo did a story. $3.8 billion from the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act, was given to the state of Colorado, who in turn gave it to Boulder, Denver. They gave $5 million to resettle migrants. $350,000 of that a week was going out to migrants to pay for them in one apartment building. This was the CBZ, owned by CBZ Management in Aurora. So this was the same building that was taken over by illegal gangs. I'm wondering how you can sit there and say that there's no American taxpayer money going to these people when they're there doing it and taking over our country, literally.
So you also said that they were spending the money resettling migrants. That doesn't sound like money spent on illegals. It sounds like money spent resettling migrants, which is not illegals. But if I take the strongest version of your question, I mean, it's pretty undeniable. I'm sure the United States in some capacity spends money on illegal immigrants. I know that we provide housing, we provide, I'm pretty sure, food stipends. I know there's like some card that these guys obsess over that asylum seekers get when they come in here, they're waiting for their court cases. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we spend money on illegals. I wish we had comprehensive immigration reform. I do think that spending money on America is important, and I think that's a good argument. I think that when you look and you see, okay, well, even if it wasn't 200 billion, Destiny, it was 20 billion. Why are we spending $20 billion in Ukraine when my neighborhood is fucking falling apart, or my city doesn't have the money to pay for these things that I think are important? I think these are good questions. Okay. Democrats are not the ones that are trying to cut funding from schools and from cities and from infrastructure and from healthcare. When the fuck was the last time you heard a Republican say, we need to stop funding the war in Ukraine so that we can fund single-payer healthcare? We need to stop giving money to Israel so that we can do something about the homeless or the drug addicted or the mental illness in society. It's never like that. It's we need to stop funding here, and then we need to cut as much spending domestically as possible so that what, the fucking free market is going to take care of your problems? What, is Bezos going to walk you to the fucking ER and pay for your medical bill? Like, it's just insane. So I agree. I can understand. Like, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. The United States has a huge federal budget. We can pay for a lot of things. And I do think that sometimes our spending is a bit sad. But when you look at who's taking money away from spending on things like healthcare or childcare or any of the multitude of things that we need money spent on in this country, it's not Democrats, it's fucking Republicans. And the idea that cutting funding to some foreign war would all of a sudden open their hearts to domestic spending on welfare is ludicrous.
Actually, I'm a Republican, and I literally just said we should take money from foreign wars and spend it on America. So I literally just said that.
So you'd be for a public option over single-payer health care?
No, I didn't say that either.
Yeah, of course you didn't. Yeah.
But if you have more money in Americans' pockets, they can afford their own health care. See, if you get the government out of the transaction, then Americans have more money.
How does money going to Ukraine come back to American pockets if we cut the funding there?
So if government has $1 million and they spend $500,000 on a foreign country, how much money do they have left?
Well, the government, they run deficits. You should know Donald Trump had the biggest deficits of all time. So
the answer is $500,000 versus what could have been $1 million. It's basic math. But it's funny, he now admits that we do pay for illegal immigrants.
You said earlier that the rich people are the ones who paid most of the taxes. So if the government stops spending, then the rich people are the ones keeping the money. Are they just going to give it to the poor people?
Which they do. The rich people do pay the most of the taxes. So thank you for at least bringing a small fact check here, because that's what now he has to admit that, yes, we do pay for illegal immigrants. And we shouldn't pay for any. We shouldn't pay for a single illegal immigrant.
So I pretty much agree with everything that Owen said there about the wars. And Trump definitely inherited those wars. Now, he could have done a lot more to stop them, or at least to drastically slow them down. But I mean, if you look at Obama's track record, he was a serious warmonger. And Trump is pretty much Mahatma Gandhi compared to Barack Obama. But the fact of the matter is that he didn't start any new wars. And that's because other countries all around the world know who the big dog is on the world stage. And they know not to mess around if there is a strong, competent leader in America who has his eyes on them. And they know that if they mess around, they will find out. But also, if we needed any more evidence of who the bloodthirsty, warmongering people are in the top echelons of society, then let's reflect on the moment. The only moment, actually, that CNN ever said anything positive about Trump. And that's when he did airstrikes on Syria.
Fareed, it's day 78 of the Trump presidency. What changed last night?
I think Donald Trump became President of the United States. I think this was actually a big moment because candidate Trump had said that he would never get involved in the Syrian civil war. He told President Obama, you cannot do this without the authorization of Congress. He seemed unconcerned with global norms. President Trump recognized that the President of the United States does have to act to enforce international norms, does have to have this broader moral and political purpose. President Trump realized, as every president has for many decades now, that presidents always believe they have inherent legal authority as commander-in-chief, and they don't need to go to a pesky Congress every time they want military force. It's entirely true that candidate Trump felt differently. Candidate Obama felt differently than President Obama on these issues. So I think that what is interesting is even the way in which he justified his actions, President Trump did. For the first time, really, as president, he talked about international norms, international rules, about America's role in enforcing justice in the world. It was the kind of rhetoric that we have come to expect from American presidents since Harry Truman, but it was the kind of rhetoric that President Trump had pointedly never used, either on the campaign trail nor in his inaugural. So I think there has been an interesting morphing and a kind of education of Donald Trump.
So, I mean, maybe if Trump did get in office and he started sending democracy bombs all over the world and started antagonizing Putin into a war, maybe the whole establishment would have just gotten behind him. Not hard to see who the party of war is this time around. So on to the next part now about satanic rituals in government, something that definitely never happens. And this is a point where Destiny wants to continue with the bad faith tactics, continue to derail the conversation, and just call anybody who believes these things crazy. Just crazy. Let's get into it.
There's sort of this growing rise in like social conservatism among Generation Z youths. And I sort of wonder as a 22-year-old where I see a future in the Democratic Party for me as someone who kind of leans left economically, more probably left-wing economically, not leans left, but someone who's sort of like center-right socially. And I just don't really see a future right now. And so I'm kind of wondering, should the Democratic Party try and appeal to this growing rise in Gen Z voters? This is according to a Gallup poll and a Pew Research poll done in the last year. Should it try to appeal, or should it just kind of leave us in the dust? Because the Republican Party, I don't see a future where they start caring about Americans and funding single-payer health care and funding housing, unfortunately. But at the same time, I'm a bit unsatisfied with the Democratic Party's social turn. And so, yeah.
I think that the goal should be to tell all of your friends to vote for Kamala Harris so that the Democrats can win with the largest margin possible, so that we can load all of the insane fucking college tankies and progressives up into a fucking Elon Musk spaceship and send them off to the fucking moon, okay? I mean, This is an issue that I talk about a lot. The far left of the party is fucking crazy, okay? That's like, nobody can deny that. I fought with the far left, honestly, probably more than Owen has, when it comes to insane people. There's a reason why I'm banned from Twitch, and it's not conservative, it's because of crazy people on the far left. That being said, something that I think is good to keep in mind is the far left is politically non-existent. There are no far left lawmakers. Even people like AOC and Bernie Sanders now are called Israeli genocide supporters by the far left. All of the college kids have now abandoned, Ilan and Rashid, like all of the Justice Dems and Bernie are all completely, off the table now. They're not radical enough for them. So I think that trying to win with the largest margin possible, so that on social media we can continue to ignore these people because that's the only place they exist, is important. But the radical element of the Republican Party is like 95% of the party. Okay, like the last YouGov poll I saw, I think said that 25% of conservatives, probably Owen included, believe in satanic sex cults. Okay, that like Hillary Clinton and Podesta belong to. Okay, where they perform blood sacrifice rituals on children. All right, this is and 80% of conservatives, Owen definitely included, don't believe in the results of the last election. This is like the big majority bulk of the party, and that is very scary, and it is a huge problem. So I agree, far left is super fucking cringe. I hope that Kamala wins with enough of a margin that we can safely eject these people and never listen to them again. They can all go vote for Jill Stein.
I'd like to address you for a second too, if you wouldn't mind. So I think what is important for young people, you can stand, you can sit, it doesn't matter. I think what's important for young people to understand is the broad difference between what the right wants to do politically and what the left wants to do politically. You're going to have issues you agree with some leftists on, some conservatives on, and that'll probably go on the rest of your life. You're more of a centrist. But I think you need to understand what the core is of the modern day left, and this rings throughout history. The American left, the Democrat Party, cannot exist without power. They need power. They want to tell you what kind of car you can drive. They need power to do that. And so that's where the left goes, where the right wing believes more in self-government. We want you to decide. So yeah, you might have to say, well, I guess if I believe an electronic car is better for the environment than a combustion engine, then I'm going to drive an electric powered car, but maybe my neighbor I think is a worse person because he doesn't drive one. That's the difference between self-government and the government deciding what you need to do. So they need power to do it, where the right wing believes in self-government. So I just think it's important to understand kind of the core principles. I want to address something you just said, satanic cults. Again.
Oh no.
Are you going to deny that there was an Epstein Island? Are you going to deny these Diddy parties where they're having all these things?
Wait a second. How many photos was Kamala Harris in with Epstein?
No.
How many photos was Donald Trump in with Epstein?
Did you read?
See the silence?
Did
Crazy,
you read?
Isn't it?
There's no silence. You just won't shut up. Did you read the WikiLeaks emails in 2016? Did you hear about Abramovich? Did you hear about the spirit cookings? Did you hear about the children in the hot tub for your entertainment? Did you read these emails? This is all public information. Anybody in this room can go look at the WikiLeaks emails. The Democrat committee emails invite Marina Abramovich to spirit cookings, and they have children in the hot tub for your entertainment. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, go home, look it up. It's all public record. It's all real.
Wait, all of that is public record? All of that is real? All of that is super true?
Yes.
Why didn't Donald Trump do anything about it?
I wish he would have.
So then why would you elect him again? He failed.
Because I vote
pragmatically,
fired Comey,
he put in his
and
own
I
guy.
know
He
that this
fired
country
his
will be
he put
better.
in his own guy.
See, you exist in a cult. I don't. I'm a pragmatic
The guy that you're
voter.
advocating for is a fucking loser. He failed on everything you want. At least I can point to Biden and go, look at the CHIPS Act. Whereas Donald Trump said, we're going to tear up China and bring back manufacturing. Nothing happened. At least Biden got a bill passed and did something. Whereas Donald Trump said, we're going to do more for infrastructure than we ever have. He did fuck all. At least Biden passed the infrastructure bill, right? When Donald Trump talks,
that's going
he
so
fails.
well.
What's going so well? The infrastructure bill? Yes, it is.
So
there's been a ton of money, more than ever before, allocated to
I understand. It sounds crazy, brother. Believe me.
I love Destiny. Look at my shirt, bro.
It's a great shirt. I'm sure he made some nice money off that shirt because he's a capitalist like everybody else. I'm just telling you, I would probably have thought I was crazy when I was your age too. But when you dig into this stuff and you realize your government is extremely corrupt, your mainstream media is extremely corrupt, most of the celebrities that we look up to are extremely corrupt. These are the ones that are telling you how to think. And so yeah, I don't like that. I don't think you should like that. And you would be stunned if you saw what was in those Democrat emails that he's pretending is not true. So you don't have to call it a satanic cult, but you can go look. Marina Abramovich, spirit cookings, Democrat Party emails. You can make up your own mind after you read them.
Why was Trump in a picture with Epstein? Why was he on the flight logs?
Who cooperated with the FBI when Epstein was trying to bring girls into his trafficking ring at Trump's clubs? Donald Trump.
Trump's clubs?
Yeah, Donald Trump. Epstein was at Trump's clubs trying
We
to
know
recruit
he's got
young girls.
security cameras in there because we saw all the documents from the Mar-a-Lago thing. So what, was Donald Trump just sitting there jerking off to it the whole time? Or?
No, he was cooperating with the FBI. He literally cooperated with the FBI. And when did Epstein get arrested?
Cooperated with the FBI?
When did Epstein get arrested? Epstein got arrested. So now the Epstein thing is real. So see, now the Epstein thing is real. Now he has to accept that it's real, and now he's talking about it. Bill Clinton flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane dozens of times.
More than Bill Clinton.
Donald Trump did not. Donald Trump helped bring Jeffrey Epstein to jail and prison. He's the only president that did so. Donald Trump cooperated with the FBI when they were investigating Epstein recruiting young girls. And notice all the people that were friends with Epstein, all the people that went to Epstein Island, all hate Donald Trump.
Now, guys, I think many of you will probably be able to relate to this, but I have these conversations with my friends sometimes who think on a similar level of analysis about how the world really works than I do. And the conversation goes something like, when you do take the red pill and when you do start to actually do your research into how things actually work and the shit that goes on at the upper echelons of government, it's a very confronting thing and it's a tough pill to swallow. And these aren't things that you want to be true, not at all. And I mean, the more you learn, the more jarring it is. Ignorance in this regard is truly bliss. And honestly, much of this stuff is just public information in terms of human trafficking at the top echelons of government and in our institutions, as well as pedos in similar positions of power, satanic rituals happening there as well. And this is why I respect guys like Alex Jones and Owen who operate within their own sort of digital infrastructure so they can speak a little bit more freely about these things, albeit with some costs. I mean, a few billion in lawsuits for Alex Jones and some prison time for Owen Shroyer. But then on the other hand, you've got Destiny with the level of cowardice that is just absolutely contemptible. To call anybody a lunatic and crazy and a right-wing extremist who believes that there are rituals going on with people at the upper echelons of society. I mean, Alex Jones literally broke into Bohemian Grove and filmed it. We know about Epstein, and that is just the tip of the iceberg. So I'm not going to go into it all here today, guys. But I will refer you to some sources. I mean, Jay Dyer's YouTube channel, he talks about occult rituals and occult Hollywood. And then another 2 documentaries, which are not for the faint-hearted and are buried somewhere in the deep recesses of Rumble or the Daily Motion, would be Out of the Shadows by Mike Smith, and also another one called Conspiracy of Silence. That's all I'll say for now, but they are findable, so watch at your own discretion. Hope you enjoyed the video today, guys. If you would like to leave a like, that would be great. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel right here. Guys, if you want to connect with me on MINNECT, if you have any burning questions, you can do so. The link is right below. And if you'd like to watch another one, right here. Till next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV. Keep me armed and dangerous.